Good morning, East Point. It is great to see all of you here today. And welcome to those of you viewing online. Let's stand up and worship.
Now the gospel to the world.
Jesus is calling. Have you come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Leave behind your regrets and mistakes. Come today, there's no reason to wait. Jesus is calling. Bring your sorrows and trade them for joy. From the ashes, a new life is born. Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah, Christ is risen. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Bear your cross as you wait for the crown. Tell the world of the treasure you found.
Amen. What an amazing morning of worship. We're glad that you're here with us here in person. We're glad that you're here with us online. You can go ahead and be seated. We're really happy to be here. I'm going to scoot over here. So just a few things this morning, a few announcements, a lot of cool stuff going on. We are in the swing of summer. If you haven't felt the heat the past couple of weeks, it's a reminder that we are here, and I hope you're enjoying the time outside with friends, with family. We had a great time last week for Father's Day. I don't know if we can quickly throw up the picture of all the dads in our Hawaiian shirts, but we had a great time. We're glad that everyone was here. Everyone celebrated with us online. We keep joking. We swear everyone is smiling. You just can't see because of the masks, but it was a really good time. And who doesn't love a good excuse to wear a Hawaiian shirt to church on Sunday? So Matt wasn't able to join us last week, but he's got his on this week. So thanks, Matt. We appreciate that. Again, we're glad you're here. If you're new, welcome. We're happy to have you. If you're new online, welcome. We're happy to have you. And we would love for you to check in. So if you're here in person, if you're here online, we'd love for you to check in on Facebook. Hashtag love God, love others. It's a great way to let folks know what you're doing right now. If you're online, I believe you can actually share and start a watch party, which would be a great way to invite your friends to participate with us while we're here in person or virtual online. And then like our page, if you haven't, that's where all the information comes out for all of our updates, all of our changes, everything going on. That is the place to find out and to know. And so as we progress this summer, you'll notice if you're here in person, there's a lot of change happening. There's a lot of stuff going on. If you've been a part of some of the volunteer work at the new property, there's a lot of work being done there. And so over the next few weeks and months, there's going to be a lot of change and a lot of new. And so we want to make sure that you're plugged in and aware of it. Yesterday, there was a lot of great work done at the property. You can see a bunch of folks came and volunteered. But what we're here doing, we want to ask for more volunteers. There's a lot of work that needs to get done. JD might today or whenever he's ready to detail the days he'll be there. He usually lets everyone know, and then you can show up during the week. And then we're going to be scheduling more of these work days. We'll get those published to Facebook. And so there's a lot of work. This group went and I heard tore down a ton of brush and trees. Dave had the chainsaw and was a madman, just cutting everything. I think he cut part of the house they wasn't supposed to. No, I think he was good. But we have a ton of, I heard for the picnic next week, there's this huge pile of brush and stuff ready to go for the fire. So that's pretty exciting. So we might not be able to have fireworks because of 4th of July, but we'll have a fire that's 20 feet tall and raging. You'll have to stand, you'll socially distance from the fire because it'll be so hot. So we're really excited about that. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself with that. So before we get to the announcements and what's upcoming, just want to remind everyone for the offering, you can still give online at eastpoint.org/give. You can drop your offering in one of the boxes in the back wall, and we also have the plates as you walk on the front. You can drop your offering there. We are very appreciative of those who give, and those who can't, it's okay, we understand. And so before we get into the announcements, I'd like to just pray for the offering. God, we just thank you. We praise you, Lord. You are awesome. And the fact that we're here, both in person and online, together, God, worshiping and praising you is just a testament to how amazing you are. It's a great time. It's a great place to be here, Lord, and we're just thankful for that. We ask that you would please bless the offering we received today, what's donated online, what's given here in person, that you would help multiply those funds, that they would impact and support the church here and impact our partners and our ministries, God, as we continue to just pave that path forward, Lord, as we move and get ready for the new location, God, and all the preparations that's going in there. We just pray, God, that you would just please continue to bless East Point, bless its members, and just help us, God, that as we move into this new phase, this new chapter of our history, that it would just be one more chapter where we pull more people into the family and more people closer to you, God. And we just are grateful and thankful to be here this morning. And then we pray, amen. So as I already mentioned, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. For July 3rd, there is help needed at the Epiphany House for a meal. So if you would like to help provide a meal for the Epiphany House, you can do that. You can find out more information about that, I believe, in the back. On July 4th, so next Saturday, if you are not busy, you are now. You're coming to the new property. We're having a 4th of July barbecue. And so it's going to start at 4 p.m. We're going to have games. We're going to have different activities for the kids and for families. It's going to be socially distanced so that we make sure we're still observing all the safety protocols. But I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a great time of fun, fellowship. If you haven't had a chance to see the property, it's going to be a great time to do so. You can take a walk. There's tons of space. And so we're really looking forward to that. So if you haven't signed up yet, there is a sign up on the table in the back. You can sign up. You can let us know what you want to bring. And then if you can, if you're going to bring some food or help prep things, come a little bit early to help get things set up. We're going to make sure that as we prepare the food, we're doing it, again, in a way that's safe and that matches all the protocols. And so we'll make sure that we are fully in line, but we should have a great time. So plan on being there July 4th at 4 p.m. And like I said, I'm going to have, a huge bonfire that the neighbors will know we're there. We've actually invited a lot of the neighbors. So we're really excited to meet a lot of those folks and really become, just part of the community there. And then on July 11th, we have the East Point yard sale. And so, Lisa, I don't know, do we have any more tables still left? Awesome. So all the tables have been sold, but they do need volunteers on Friday and Saturday. So July 10th and July 11th, if you have the time and ability, we would love for you to get plugged in. So if you have any questions about that, you can see Lise, she's over there. Okay. For those of you online who might not have heard that, we can still accept donations for the church. So if you still have stuff that you'd like to donate and get rid of, you can still bring those, and we will sell those for you. As we like to say, another person's junk is another person's treasure. And so if you have that old exercise bike sitting there as a hanger, you can bring it here and somebody will use it as an exercise bike. So we're excited for that. And then last thing, we talk about this a lot, there's always opportunity to serve, to volunteer, and get plugged in. And so if you would like to do so, we said we needed volunteers for next week. We need volunteers for the yard sale, but we also need help here on Sundays. So after the service every week, we'd ask folks if they can to stay behind, help sanitize and clean. We spray the chairs down, wipe the surfaces, clean the bathrooms. We make sure that the church is fully sanitized and ready to go for the next week. And then, as I mentioned, JD will let you know, I believe this morning or other times, when he's going to be at the property. And then we're going to send out more Facebook invites for more volunteer time. There's going to be a lot of work upcoming, and so we're going to make sure that we get everyone as much information as possible. But here's the thing. We need you to volunteer. We need you to help, especially just putting this out there. When it's time to move out of here, everything that's not bolted down, minus like the tables and the counter, is coming with us. So there's a lot of stuff. It's going to be a lot of work. And I know we all love moving, but we're a family, right? So this is our family. We don't have an excuse but to come help. And so we want to encourage you to do so. But we're glad you're here. Happy to be here. Can I get an amen? There we go. Awesome. Cool. JD, whenever you're ready.
So riveted by the announcements, I forgot to put my earpiece in. Can you hear me now? All righty. Hey, Lisa, my iPad did not charge. In fact, it would not charge. It was in full-out revolt today, so I've got the computer here. I want to add a little addendum to the announcement that was made there. First off, I am very much looking forward to the 4th of July, us all getting together. I have a good time at the house all the time, so I look forward to us all being there. I want to say about the bonfire, I don't know if we can have a bonfire yet. That is all dependent upon the fire marshal's approval of us being able to light, about an acre's worth of wood on fire. So it's not quite that bad, but before we could have a bonfire, we need to get the fire marshal's approval. And on that little transition there, so far we've not done well at fire marshal approval. Our initial plan submissions were not accepted; they were rejected. It only took them a month to do that. I just love waiting, but they because of the fact that they said that with us doing what we're doing, in terms of making it like into a church and using offices and doing things of that nature, they said that's a change of use. So it was a residential treatment center. Now it is something different. So we have to have not just the area that we're renovating, but we have to have surveys. We have to have parking. There's a number of things that we have to do. The day I got the news, I got on the phone, I got busy, we've talked to some engineers, we got things rolling, so we're working in those directions, but I just want to keep you up to date on what's going on here. So it's like, That's going to add a little time to our overall schedule because I do have to get those surveys and we get all that approval and some extra stuff we have to do to the main part of the house. The good news about that is once we've done those things that they are requiring us to do, we will be able to meet in the house. We will have some meetings there. So when we are out of here, and Josh was talking about, the good ones, the people that have the property next door, the ones that took that 5,000 square feet that we had over there, they have now said they would like to have all of it. I think it would have been so much easier if they had said that right up front that they want all of it, because they wouldn't have had to put up this extra wall and do all the patches that they did. But we don't know when. They tend to move rather slowly, but they said we've got at least a month before that. But I am in touch with the landlord and the representatives there, so we'll keep you updated on that, because that will be a big thing. But I'm excited about that. First of all, I love deadlines because it puts a fire under me. You know, it's like and the whole way here this morning, Jude and I were discussing about how she doesn't think I need fires put under me. She says, you know, she's like trying to caution me about overworking. I said, I don't overwork. She's like, you always overwork. So we'll see about that. And we had great volunteers this week. I was just going to tell you who I saw this week at the house. There may have been other people there doing stuff that I didn't see. If you were there and I did see you and I forgot to put your name on here, well, just chastise me afterwards. No need to yell out, hey, idiot. But we had the whole Parson clan, Dave and Susan, Zach and Colin, and they get a bonus, or they get first mention because they brought friends. And they were there twice. The boys and Susan were there twice. When you get there, you see the garden, some of the beds, and there's too many plants in some of those beds, but there's not too many weeds, because Susan has been on her hands and knees for hours over this past week, pulling up weeds, filling up bin after bin of weeds that she is pulling out of those beds. It's wonderful. She's doing a great job. And I'll tell you what, I know how to make the Parsons boys happy. You just put a sledgehammer in their hand and say, here, break it apart. You know, and it's like they just love busting stuff up. And when they had their friends there, they'd all just sort of line up and take turns hitting stuff with sledgehammers. It was fun to watch. But Glenn, I loved having Glenn there, because Glenn makes me feel good, because I think he's the only person that's worked there that has fallen more than me. I appreciated that, because the two of us at different points as we're doing things with the trees, all of a sudden the tree is coming on us, and I just sort of hold the tree and roll with it, you know. It's like, but it's so there. Jim, he's my work buddy. Jim Hill, he's there a lot. He comes, he takes care of. I don't even, normally, other than this past Saturday, I don't even think about the outside all that much. I'm busy taking care of the demolition inside. Jim takes care of the outside. He's also, Jim together with Lori, they're our social networking people, because they just go and they meet all the neighbors. They could just go and talk to them, and the neighbors are being overwhelmingly supportive of what we're doing. We had volunteers. It was fun to watch for a while. There was 4 of us out there. Was it 4 or 5 of us, whatever it was, but trying to get, there's this big block of cement in the front yard. And we were hoping it was just a slab, but we think it's got a footer that goes underneath it about 3 foot into the ground. And it's not the easiest thing to get out of the ground when you've got a footer thing like that. So we got all these pry bars, and we're wiggling it, but we're not getting it out of there. We're just bending our pry bars. The neighbor sees us do it and says, hey, I got a tractor with a bucket on it. I could probably help pull that out of there for you. And this is the type of stuff we're getting. The neighbors are just being awesome. They see what we're doing, they like it, and they're doing so much for us. Tim was there, making sure that he was encouraging me, because as I would sit there, because I'm not normally the person that plans like landscape stuff. It's like I'll do things, but outside it's kind of like that's above my pay grade. And I'm looking at someone and saying, we got a whole bunch of pine trees that were like right up against the building. And the backside's dead and the front's there, but I'm thinking, I don't like them, but I'm not usually one that makes decisions about it. And Tim's the one that encouraged me, hey, you got the manpower here, man, do it now if you're going to do it. Here go the trees. We got so much stuff out of there. Matt has been one of my faithful friends. He works with me there. Then he has to go home and recuperate for a few days, let all the blisters heal, the back straighten back out. We're working. One of the things you'll notice, there's a lot of old guys coming here and working. So if you young guys feel like you want to get some exercise, we do have some young folks coming. So it was like great on Wednesday. Had 4 young men there doing stuff. It was awesome. There was some stuff I was just dreading moving. It's gone. They move it. It's wonderful. So thank you for the volunteers. If you didn't get a chance, and you might be saying, JD, there is no way I'm going to come and ever do construction stuff. That's fine. I understand that it's not for everybody. I'm having a lot of fun, but that's not fun for everybody. I will say for some of you, and maybe some of you online who are listening, I know that the volunteers wouldn't be upset if you were to like drop off some snacks or maybe some water bottles or something like that. If you say, I want to be involved with this project, but I'm not picking up a sledgehammer and I'm not going to get all sweaty and dirty, then we get that. But if you want to be involved, there will be a way for you to get involved. So we want you all to be able to be a part of that. And this is it's fun. There's a lot of good stuff going on. This is an exciting time to be a part of East Point because East Point, part of what I love about the construction is I think about us as a body, and it's like we're stripping stuff down to the basic stuff, and it's like we're building the foundation of East Point. We are building who we are going to be, and when we're there doing stuff together, for one thing, the bonding, the relationships grow. We were talking about, yesterday being, like a men's play date. As we were out there, because we had power tools and Susan was the only woman there and she was out pulling weeds, so she couldn't tell us to not do what we were doing. And so, you put a chainsaw in a man's hand, and then the problem is you don't have to tell him what to cut. You have to say what he's not allowed to cut, because it's we get those chainsaws going. Glenn got his workout all day, just doing this a lot. Chain came off of my chainsaw. I got to put that back on, but we're just going after it. We're having fun. So it's I encourage you, if you want to be a part of any of that, you are more than welcome. This is not my iPad, so I can't touch the screen. It's not working. I keep touching the screen and it won't advance. So that's it for getting you caught up on the family business and things of that nature. It's just so much that's going on, but we're gonna jump back into the book of Ephesians. Now, you might remember way back when, pre this viral stuff that was going on, we were looking into the book of Ephesians. I tried one time during the viral thing to do the book of Ephesians, and that was not happening. It was like, what? We got all this stuff going on. When you talk about Ephesians, so the changes are here to stay. A lot of these changes. People are going, I'm not going out until I can take my mask off. Well, then stock up, because we got, it's going to be a couple of years before you can stop wearing your mask, I think. That just is sticking around, the mask, for a while. My prediction. I don't know diddly squat about this stuff, but that's just my prediction. So that's what I'm putting out there. So the life has changed. Social distancing is a new part of our vocabulary. The idea of quarantining. 6 months ago, if I'd have said, everybody's going to be quarantined for a big, you'd said, what are you talking about? There's no way something's going to happen big enough for us to all be quarantined. And these things have been happening. That stuff's here. And so we have to look and say, this is a part of life now. This is a part of what we're doing. And it's not the point of anything that we're doing. It's just part of what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Because our purpose, our vision, our focus continues to be Jesus Christ and building the kingdom He has called us to build. Now, today's message is primarily going to be geared at those of you that are already convinced. It's not geared so much for those of you that say, I don't know about this Jesus guy. But I will tell you, I might be touching on some points of why you say, this is why I'm not so sure about this Jesus guy. Because I know Christians, and they're not doing the stuff you're talking about up there, JD. And so why would I trust them? So this is a kind of an encouragement for those of you that are believers, for those of you that say, I'm a follower of Christ, to say, is this what I'm doing? Now, when we left off the last time we talked about this stuff, we talked about the idea that God was basically saying, kind of like, grow up a little bit, spiritually. He's like, we're all going to be a part of this, and he gets into that whole thing about how we just have to be spiritually more mature than we are. And he kind of continues on this theme, but he's now building a point. Because the verse, we're starting in chapter 4, verse 17 is where we're starting. And he starts out with He says, so I tell you this. And he's like, so the so, you're like, well, why did he start it with so? So is because he's just explained how important it is for us to be unified, for us to be one, for us to grow up in a group. So in 4:17, he says, so I tell you this, and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do in the futility of their thinking. Now, the few things that need clarified here is when you see the word Gentiles in the Bible, do not think of a racial group, because that's not really how it's being used. The Gentiles were those that are outside of the faith. So the Gentile was a very broad term. Now, we use Gentiles, when we talk about Gentiles now, we talk about it in terms of, well, there's Jewish people and there's Gentile people, and they're the non-Jewish. But Jesus kind of straightened a lot of that out, because when he talked about that people, that he says, that were Gentiles but became adopted under Abraham, and essentially are no longer Gentiles. Well, we all know you don't change your racial or your geographical, or, you can't change your background. You can't go back and undo your history. But he's saying, but you can change. So when you see the word Gentile, see that as people who don't follow me. That Jesus is saying, don't be like the people that don't follow me. Because what do? They live in the futility of their thinking. Now, this is one of the things that comes up a lot. And I'm better about this than I used to be, but this used to be like one of those little pet peeves of mine. When I was in graduate school, I was probably a little over the top with this type of thing. But it seems to be that sometimes if you're a Christian, that thinking is optional, and it really isn't. I see people wanting to say, well, I'm just waiting to see what God will tell me about this. And the majority of the stuff that God tells us, he does not tell us by opening up the heavens, the clouds roll back, and a big voice comes down and says, no, don't do it. That's stupid. Instead, what he did is he equipped us with an intellect, and he gave us his word, and he says, use your head. Use your head. All the time people say, is this a sin? My favorite one always was, is smoking a sin? I said, does it have to be? It's just kind of stupid. It's, you're sucking smoke into your lungs. Isn't that enough? I'm not saying that you're a bad person if you smoke. I'm just saying, it's like saying, is sugar a sin? Well, does it need to be? The consumptions of large quantities of sugars, it's just not very bright. You end up like me, diabetic, So we have our things that we don't have to always say. The Bible doesn't say anything. I cannot find a thing in the Bible about X-rated movies. It must be okay. And he would say, use your head. What you put in there stays in there. What corrupts a person is not what goes in, but what comes out. Because what you do is you taint your heart, and what comes out of your heart is a reflection of the evil that you've allowed and put into your heart. And see, this is what we do when we live as the non-believers. If we live as those who do not care or wish to follow Jesus, we live in futility of thinking. We have thought processes that lead us down the wrong road. And I could pick up any newspaper from any city for today's paper, and I'm sure that before we got out of the first page, I could show you some extreme examples of futility of thinking, because it happens at all levels. It happens at government levels, it happens at city levels, it happens at home levels, it happens at individual levels. We think about things and think, this is what I need, this is what's best for me. And why are we thinking those things? Well, let's go on. Can't touch it there. See, he says, they are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their hearts. That's quite a sentence, isn't it? They're darkened in their understanding. They're not seeing clearly. And so they're separated from the life of God. Why are they ignorant? Now, ignorant does not mean stupid. Okay? Ignorance means that you don't have knowledge about something. There's a lot of areas in which I am ignorant, and it doesn't necessarily present a problem for me until I try to act in that area of which I am ignorant, and then it's a problem. Like when I start to decide what landscaping should look like outside. I'm kind of ignorant in that area. So unless I've got people that are not ignorant, for me to make decisions on my own, we'd probably have a completely denuded lawn, because I'm just like, well, if you take down everything, then the mower can just go straight across on everything, you know? And you lose your shade, but that's why God created awnings. So there's areas in which we're all ignorant, but God's looking at this and saying, when it comes to the life skills, when you remove God from the equation, what you end up with is ignorance. And when you've got that ignorance, you will be far from God. That's what's going to happen. And why? Because they harden their hearts. If we're honest with ourselves, how often do you know what the right thing to do is at one level, but you are a very skilled debater at another level, and so you talk yourself into something that you know is not good for you? It's for Father's Day, we had some chocolate chip cookies at the house. Now, you know, it should be like those little cans with that you spray for the ants, you know, the 3 X's on there, the little shield that shows danger, danger. That's what they should put on those cookies around me. I love chocolate chip cookies. And I look at those cookies and I say, that will raise your blood sugar, it'll shorten your life, it'll damage your organs. That's a bad thing for you to eat. Unless, of course, you just have one. Because you eat pretty good most of the time, so you could have one cookie, and that's going to be okay. Isn't that going to be good? Well, that's all right, so I'll have a cookie. Because I've told myself, that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. You're right, Jay, there's nothing wrong with that. But see, now I say, well, why do you pretend like you're being good about your diabetes? You clearly aren't. You had a cookie. You don't care about your diabetes. You're not working it. Have another. Because you've already broken your thing, so you may as well have another. Oh, okay. Maybe just one more, you know, until the package is gone, you know, and then you're like, well, see, I was just removing the temptation from the house. I have used that excuse. Well, if I just eat this stuff up, then it won't be there to tempt me. You know what that's called? That's called lying to yourself. That is where our thinking is off. We get in there and we tell ourselves the wrong thing. I've hardened my heart against the truth because there's something that I want. And we all do it. We buy things that we can't afford. We go places we know we shouldn't go. We hold on to relationships that we know are unhealthy for us. And that's called hardening your hearts. And God says, don't live that way anymore. Don't do it. And I love how he finishes this. Having lost all sensitivity, they've given themselves over to sensuality so as to indulge in every kind of impurity. And they're full of greed. That full of greed to me feels like it's that little kick once you're on the ground, you know. They're ignorant, they're hardened hearts, they've lost sensitivity, they indulge in every kind of impurity. Oh, and they're greedy, you know. It's just, I don't know, to me, some of the humor that I find in the Bible is like, it's just add a little touch on. But see, when we say, oh, that sensuality, he's talking about sexual sin, and I'm clean in that area. My cookies are about sensuality. See, we have 5 senses. Unless you're one of those paranormal people that talk about the 6th sense, but we won't get into that. We got 5 senses. And we are prone to experience and try to maximize what those senses receive that's pleasurable. It's this whole thing that we are driven by the need for pleasure. The senses are always going to be working. There's all kinds of sensory input you can have. You know, when you're hammering and you hit your thumb, that is sensory input. It's highly stimulating. It's just not the stimulation that you want. And so we look and say, how can I have the most pleasure? So we get chairs that envelop us, right? You have one of those chairs in your home, you sit down in, you're just in that chair. I've got a chair at home. It's one of those lazy boy rockers, swivel, recliner. The thing's huge. I mean, I sit in that chair, I feel like Lily Tomlin on the rocking chair, for those of you that are old enough to remember that, you know. But, and I said, my son was in it the other day, and he said, now, my youngest son, and he's like, he said, he goes, yeah, I was trying to get in there. He goes, it's like it's too small. I'm like, too small? The thing will eat you alive. It's like, because, you roll it back and you're laying there. It's like, and once you're in that chair, you're like, man, I'd really love something to drink, but there's no way I'm getting out of the chair. I'm going to wait until she gets up and walks toward the kitchen. And just like it's an afterthought, oh, hey, while you're in there, don't act like you don't do that. See, we indulge in every kind of impurity, and this is what he's saying. Don't do that. Don't do it. This is not what you're supposed to be after. And in fact, he goes on to say, that, however, is not the way of life you learned when you heard about Christ and were taught in him in accordance with the truth that is in Jesus. And it's like there's this big shift that's happened right here. And he's saying, I don't want you to do all these things, but he's saying, you were taught something else. And you were taught this other thing because it was in Jesus. It's the life of Jesus. See, the term Christian, which first time it was used in Antioch, was used, I think, a bit derogatory, because it's basically saying that those are the little Christs. When's the last time that you could be accurately accused of being a little Christ? Wouldn't it be awesome if we were guilty of such? Because to be a follower of Christ is to be one who patterns their life after Jesus Christ, who follows in his steps, which is very different than what comes naturally to us. See, I may have told you before that when I was at the coffee shop, and I would be there primarily in order to get some conversations going, talk with people that needed to have a good talk. And there was an anthropologist who came in from the university. He travels around the world doing his anthropology thing, whatever that may be, that I don't really fully know what they do other than study people. And he was talking about the lost art of conversation. And so we got a conversation started up. He had ordered his order to go. And then he sat down and talked to me for an hour and a half, so I guess it was a waste of paper. We did not the plant an injustice there, but we were talking, and at one point I referred to myself as a man of faith, and he go, whoa, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, I don't usually call myself a Christian because of the fact that the Christian has so many connotations now that people instantly write me off when they hear the word Christian, so I try to come up with something else. He goes, man of faith is just as offensive. He goes, why can't, I said, then I probably should more accurately say that I'm a disciple of Jesus. That would be maybe the most accurate thing I can say, because I try to follow and see what he tells me to do and do that. And he says, why can't you just say you're a lover of God and a lover of people? I said, because God's easy to love and people aren't. And the only reason that I love God is because I'm a disciple of Jesus. And so I have to get down to the more basic issue there, because it's only through Jesus that I'm able to do the loving that I'm supposed to do. And see, and this is the whole idea, that our whole thing that we're doing is to be like Jesus. What did Jesus do? He gave his life away for others. He set aside all that he had in order to take care of the needs of others, to take care of them. And we'll look more at that in the weeks to come. But, the truth that is in Jesus, that we were taught, and you've been taught, and I've been taught, and I don't care if you've never gone to church, you have experienced and you have been taught stuff that is in accordance with the life of Jesus. There are so many ideas that we have that people think is just part of culture, and they're not. They're part of the kingdom of God. There's stuff that God has said when he intervened into a world which was, everything was, you didn't like your wife, you killed her. You got rid of her. No consequences. It just, it's like, or you got another one or two or three. And there's all kinds of things that were part of, and God comes along and he starts to say, I want you to do this differently. Because I love your wife as much as I love you. And if it was all based on behavior, I'd probably love her more than you. But it's not based on that. It's based upon the image that is stamped on you, which is my image. And she has it every bit as much as you do, guys. And he does all these countercultural things. As we know, there's lots of places in the world where that's still not true. But God's saying there's stuff that you've been taught in accordance with Jesus. You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. If you take some time and just meditate on these few verses, what you're going to start to recognize is that the bar is being put up there. It's being raised. Not so that it becomes impossible, so that we become dependent. It's there so that we lean on God. Because he says, you put away your old ways. Take off your old self. All of us try to do this. Have you ever heard somebody say, you say, oh, the last time I saw you, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not that person. In fact, you may have said that to a number of people. People love to tell me stories about when I was little, when I run across like people that my parents' age, that my mom's friends. Oh, I remember when you were little, you just gave your parents such a hard time. You were such a difficult child to raise. Hey, I'm not that kid anymore. You know? Apparently when I was real little, one of my big issues was when I was in church, is I would take my clothes off. Sit right up front. Decided it was too hot, take all my clothes off. Yeah. Isn't it great we outgrow some things? How disturbing would that be? Don't let your mind go there. It's some things you can't scrub out of your mind. But we grow up and we put away childish things. We put away old ways. If we are going to mature into Christ, then we need to put away the stuff that kept us from doing that. We need to put away the ways that were reminiscent of or that fueled our life far from God. And some of us, like if you're like, I was saved at a very early age. I was a young guy because I just, one of the things that I heard a lot about, and I even remember a fair amount of it, is that I always asked questions. I had question after question after question. My family, I would drive them crazy. My sisters would pay me to be quiet. 30 minutes cost them a penny. You don't see rates like that anymore. If I'd be quiet, sometimes I was able to get a nickel for 30 minutes of silence, and sometimes I couldn't make the 30 minutes. Because I had so many questions. I wanted to know, what is this hell business? What is God? What are you guys talking about salvation? What is it to be a follower of Christ? I was 5 when I said, well, I want to follow Jesus. That's something I want to do. And I probably had a lot of those questions because I started reading books at 4, and I was reading stuff that I didn't understand. And so my family, when I think back, and I grew up in a home where that decision was strongly encouraged and supported. It was nurtured. I'm very fortunate. But when I look back and say, well, in the ways I was before Jesus, I don't even remember hardly those days. The sad part is I don't need to. Because I've got all kinds of far from Jesus behavior that happened after I made that decision and said, I will follow him. And then I stopped following. I said, I will follow him and do it his way, and then I went out and did it my way. I said, he is the Lord of my life, and then I crawled up onto the throne and said, I'm in charge. And then I wonder, when trouble comes, when heartache comes, when hurt comes, when I am living the life that says, I am not a follower of Jesus. God, why aren't you saving me? Why aren't you protecting me? Why aren't you making everything great? I mean, didn't I read your word this morning? I'm sure it was at least 3 minutes. It seemed like forever. Certainly I get some points here. He says, these are our corrupted thoughts, our ways in which we are being corrupted by our deceitful desires. And the words on this to me, they hit home for me. Because I'm very much an introspective person. I'm constantly doing the evaluations of what's going on here. Maybe overly so, but see, I find corruption. The majority of my prayers that are private prayers, not the public ones, that would not be so good, but for my private prayers, start with God, show me. Show me what it is that I have to confess and get out of the way. I hate praying that. You know why? Because God answers every one of those prayers. When I say, show me what's wrong in my heart, show me. When I say, search me, O God, and know my heart. He says, are you sure that's what you want? I said, I think it's what I want. And then he showed me. He said, I don't think I wanted that. You know, it's like that doesn't feel so good. But see, what it is he's shown me my deceitful desires that are leading to corruption. And while I have those deceitful desires, what I want to nurture are those deeper desires that Jesus gives us as he comes into our life and says, you know that you were made for more than this. You know that this is not what you're all about. You are not that person anymore. You have been made new. I've taken away that heart of stone, given you a heart of flesh. Guess what? Flesh hurts. Stone doesn't. Do you want to feel? Do you want to be connected? Do you want to be capable of real love? Or do you just want to be a stone? Be kept apart. Do you want to deceive yourself and allow the corruption to come and you can't see it coming because you are living in the ways that are far from God, that say that he is not the Lord of your life? And this is the choice that we're presented with here. There have been many points in my life when I've said, I don't want to be a sensitive person. I don't want to be a person who feels deeply, because I'm a person who tends to feel deeply. I am more emotional than Judy is. If you get to know the two of us, I'm the one with the kids. You know, when she told me that she was pregnant with our youngest one, I started crying. 18 years even from now, they're going to be gone. And then 18 years came and went, and I started crying again. 18 years, they're still not gone. No. No, but it's like, I just, and she'll tell you that, I'm emotional. I feel things like really deep. I'm not one of those people that you have to yell at about things. My parents, when I was a kid, I have a brother. I didn't have him. He's still there. He's actually a pastor in Ohio. And they had to bring out the big guns to get him. When he's doing something wrong, they got to point it out. They got this. I got my share of swats and stuff like that. But when I was goofing around in church, when I got too old to take my clothes off, then I sat with my friend a cat further back, and we did things like traded all of our money in for pennies so we could put them in the offering plate when it went by. And so you could see how heavy you could make the plate before it got to the end of the aisle. Until deacons got wise on that one and made us count it. But, but and when I would... all my dad had to do was turn and look at me. And when he made eye contact, my behavior stopped. Because I couldn't handle disappointing my parents. That was just too much. Now, my brother, you had to come over with a little wooden thing, knock him upside the head or something like that. Because he's like, yeah, they saw me, but they can't get to me for a while. It's like, we're in church. So he's far more charismatic than I am, my brother. He can do those things. But do you want a heart of stone? Then I would say, if that's what you're after, then it's been spelled out for you here. Live according to the foolishness of your thinking, distorted thinking, skewed thinking. That's all about pleasure and about taking care of you. Make yourself the center of everything you do, and that heart of stone will be sure to accompany you. Because it's the only way you can live like that. But if you're going to live like Jesus, if you say, my desire is to be like God in true righteousness and holiness, I'm not saying if you're saying, yeah, I can do that, I'm good at it. No, I'm not saying can you. I'm saying what's your desire? See, because if I look at that and say, can I do that? I'm like, I may as well eat the whole box of cookies because I can't do that. But if I can say, is that my desire? Can I lean on him for my next decision? The next time I'm going to make a choice, can I say, how would God make this choice? How would Jesus make this choice? You know, WWJD, what would JD do? Oh, what would Jesus do? Sorry. I can do that. And you know what? While I can do that, I won't always. And sometimes I'll make the next choice. And the next choice that I make is going to be to gratify my sensual desires and to corrupt myself. Which is why I have to go back again and again and again and get on my knees and say, God, show me where I've gotten off track. Because my desire is to be true in righteousness and holiness like God. And he can make me that way. He can make you that way. He can make you all that you are intended to be. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's always fun. I'm saying it's worth it. Next week, we're going to look more to it at how does that happen? What exactly does that look like? So I know some of you sharp ones are going, I'll just go ahead and read the next part of the chapter, and I'll have next week all taken care of. I can sleep in. You can do that. What desire is that? Are you gratifying a sensual desire to stay at home in bed? I encourage you. Opt for the heart of flesh, which will come with pain, which is worth it. Let's pray. God, I thank you. I thank you that you are so tolerant with us, but that you call us to be more. That you love us where we are, but you just encourage us and let us know that we are taught to not just stay in our old ways of thinking, our old ways of behaving, but that we know better. Lord, help our thinking to be right. Before we get our actions straightened around, Lord, before we can start to live a life that looks like yours, we have to adopt your mindset. And that is for the desire for that heart of flesh, that desire to be righteous and holy and to live like Jesus. Help us to do that. And Lord, help us to experience and know the joy that comes with walking with you. In Christ's name, amen. So we're going to do some cleanup here at the end if you want to help out with that. Doesn't take us very long. Many hands make light work. What did we take down? 6 trees yesterday and trimmed that one up? I cannot hear you. Oh, when am I going to be there this week? I will be there Wednesday because the Parson group comes on Wednesday. And so we'll have there Wednesday morning. Thursday afternoon I'll be there because Glenn's going to come and make sure that I don't feel all alone with my falling. And I will be there other times. Those are the times that I'm definitely committing to right now because I will be there other times, but some things come up. And sometimes I have to run someplace else, so I don't want you. And if you say, hey, I want to go there, I'll tell you my cell phone number right now. It's 302-379-4773. But next week, maybe I'll put it on a slide or something like that. 302-379-4773. If you want to go to the house and you're wondering, hey, I wonder if that place is open, give me a call. Because if I can be there, I will. And if I can't, then I won't. But at least you'll know, so you can get hold of me. I answer my calls when I can. If I've got my right headphones in, I can even answer it while I'm on a ladder reaching over my head because it'll just go right into my ear, so I love it. So, yes. Yes, you can also contact Jim Hill. I don't have his cell phone number memorized, so you can just show up at his house. You can, yeah. But Jim lives real close to the house, and so he can get over there too to some stuff. So, Jim Hill. So get hold of one of us if you want to. There's, like I say, there's things to be done. And you can also just pray for those of us that are there, because falls happen. You know? Nothing like doing a somersault while holding a chainsaw. So, all right. It's great to have you here. I'll see you next week. Unless you're online, then you'll see me. Thanks.